Joining us now in studio, Bruce McCuaig. He is President and CEO of Metrolinx, and we're happy to have you in that chair. Bruce, how are you today?
Great, thanks for having me here.
Not at all. You've been in the paper a lot lately, in case you haven't noticed.
Absolutely.
You've noticed.
Very popular.
I want to read something that the National Post said about you just earlier this month. Went like this. While stopping short of endorsing a particular transit blueprint, Bruce McCuaig said Toronto Mayor Rob Ford's preferred plan for underground light rail on Eglinton Avenue delivers greater benefit than the Transit City version a coalition of councillors want to revive. Okay, if that's your position, go ahead and make the case.
Well, we really have two different kinds of plans that are being considered right now. The plan that was in the Memorandum of Understanding that was endorsed last March by the Mayor and the province and Metrolinx talked about Eglinton Crosstown being a fully grade-separated quarter, so it's all underground.
Sorry, English? Oh, all underground.
All
okay.
underground. And what that means is that it moves more people faster from end to end. So while it's more expensive, you can carry more people on that corridor. It also means, though, that the stations are a little bit further apart than they would be if it was on the surface, because stations underground are much more expensive. It means that there's not as much money left over to build other transit systems in the City of Toronto. So really the question is, do we want to invest more in the Eglinton Crosstown in a more expensive project, or have more money left over to build transit in other parts of the city?
What do you think the right answer to that question is?
Well, I think that what we want to do is, first of all, get on with building transit. We want some certainty from the city in terms of what their plan is, what their position is. And we want to make sure that whatever plan or position the city comes up with, that we evaluate against some of our criteria. And those criteria include, how does the plan address regional transportation benefits? What are the fiscal impacts of the plan? Because we only have the $8.4 billion, we can't go above that. What are the impacts in terms of any penalties? Because we have invested money in different projects already, and we don't want to lose money on those projects. Are there any delays that would result, and what are the impacts on traffic? So we're trying to give council space right now to come up with their position.
Why?
Because it's important for us to be able to partner with the city. For us to build transit on a city road, under a city road, above a city road, to move utilities, to acquire property, we need a really solid partnership with the municipality. So we do need council to have a strong position.
Okay, but well, you say council. So in your understanding then is, it's the council's decision, not the mayor's decision.
We need a partnership that would hopefully stretch across the mayor, the council, and the TTC, because those are the parties that we work with.
I get that,
in the end,
but you may not get them all.
In the end, council binds the municipality, so we're very carefully watching what council's position is.
So in which case, why did anybody sit down and negotiate with just the mayor?
Well, I think the mayor is always an important leader on council.
But he's apparently not the majority right now.
And as part of the Memorandum of Understanding, we obligated that the mayor would have to go back to council in the end to get council approval for the plan. So in the end, we had always identified that council's decision would be a critical decision to achieve.
Okay, now let me go back to where we were before about why you guys actually haven't told them what to do. You're sort of waiting for them to indicate a preference. And we got this right out of your, this is your mission statement: to improve the coordination and integration of all modes of transportation in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. The organization's mission is to champion, develop, and implement an integrated transportation system for our region that enhances prosperity, sustainability, and quality of life. And some people have obviously interpreted that to suggest that you ought to be getting in there with some baseball bats and getting folks moving.
Well, we're trying to get moving on a whole bunch of fronts across the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. And integration of the regional transportation transit system is key. We are going ahead with the Presto project, the integrated fare card. It's implemented on the GO system. It's implemented on all the transit systems, and we're about to implement it across the TTC. York Viva Bus Rapid Transit is under construction right now. Union Station, if you've been down recently, it's been a complete construction zone. The Spadina subway is being extended. Mississauga Transitway. There is lots going on in the region.
But again, I'm going to go to that quote there. To champion, develop, and implement an integrated transportation system. And yet, your critics obviously have been saying you've sat on the sidelines while Toronto City Council kind of dickers about whether they want Transit City, Mayor Miller's plan, or Mayor Ford's plan, or this new coalition plan. And meantime, tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Is that a fair criticism?
No, I don't think we've been sitting on the sidelines. We've been in with the city, we've been in with the TTC, we've been with our other partners trying to again, get to the point where there's a clarity in the municipal position so we can get on with building transit. So we are working very, very closely with them. We are giving them advice. The expert panel, the council formed that's meeting right now, we do have staff that are participating in that so that we can give the panel the best possible advice.
This is the one that's going to report in 2 weeks?
That's right.
Okay. Can you clarify for us? I really want to understand who's in charge here. In other words, Metrolinx was created by the province as a province-wide, well, an organization with
regional-wide, yes,
responsibilities. The Toronto Transit Commission has responsibilities for operating a transit system within the so-called 416. Do you trump them?
Well, we have to work in partnership. No question that this is there's multi-dimensions to the relationships that we have. We have responsibility for the regional plan, which we've developed. It's called the Big Move, and it sets out our 25-year plan for how we want to grow the transit and transportation system. The TTC is a big part of achieving that big move, and obviously these projects are critical to that. So in terms of who's in charge, we're trying to work together. We're trying to provide leadership in saying, here's our vision for where we want to get to. We're actually going to be owning and controlling some of these lines. The Crosstown project, which is under construction right now. People forget we are actually building things right now.
We've seen this movie before, Bruce. I remember 20 years ago they were boring through Eglinton Avenue and then they ended up filling the holes in 5 years later.
We will have a tunnel boring machine on Eglinton this summer, and we'll be starting to do the first tunnel drive to Ellen Road. So we are going ahead with the projects, that's clear. And what we're trying to do is establish I guess the reputation of driving forward on the agenda to build infrastructure on time and on budget. That's what we want to do.
You got the money though, right? Don't you have the checkbook in this case?
That's right.
Okay, in which case he who pays the piper usually calls the tune. Can you tell the TTC what to do?
We can, as the owner and controller, we can exercise our ownership responsibility, but again, it's a partnership. We are going to be building transit on a city road or under city road. We do need to have permits from them. We do need to move their utilities. So I think the only way, whether it's in this form of infrastructure or in any other jurisdiction in Canada, the only way that an agency can build a piece of infrastructure in a municipality is if you have a partnership with that municipality.
So if I understand you right, then you could tell them what to do, but you won't because it's better to do it kind of collaboratively.
Well, we think that we need to keep building that strong partnership about what's the common view of how we want to move ahead.
Okay, I wonder how difficult it is to form this partnership when the TTC seems to be, I don't know what the right expression is here. It's not exactly in flux, but as you know, the mayor fired the chief general manager not too long ago because he said he didn't like the advice that the chief general manager, Gary Webster, kept giving him. What'd you think of that move?
Well, I can't comment on the personnel moves that occur at the TTC.
You can comment on anything you like.
And the city. Gary Webster is someone I've worked with for many, many years. I have a lot of respect for Gary Webster. At the same time, we're committed to working with the TTC leadership. Andy Byford and I have had our first conversations about how do we move forward on the plans.
He's the new guy.
He's the new guy, and we've built deep relationships up and down and across the TTC. We need to work with them.
You are a public servant, as Gary Webster was a public servant.
That's
I mean,
right.
Your job, essentially, at the end of the day, I think, is to give, advice to politicians who ultimately hold the purse strings and ultimately get going. Does it put a chill into folks like you when, if you give advice to politicians they don't like, you can be fired for it?
One of my responsibilities as a senior public official is to give my board of directors my best possible advice and answer the questions to my best ability. And when they've made a decision, to put my shoulder to the execution of what they've decided. So I think that's how I define my role. I have to be fearless in my advice, but I have to execute once they've made a decision. So I'm committed to doing that, and I think that's what my board wants me to do.
But when you saw the chief general manager of the Toronto Transit Commission fired for giving his best advice to the mayor of Toronto, do people who do what you do start to say to themselves, I better pull my punches?
Well, I think, again, my obligation to my board, and I think what they expect of me, is that I give them my best.
And do you?
And I give them my objective, neutral, professional advice, and I give options, and I tell them the implications of the options, and I give them a recommendation. And I think that's my obligation and responsibility as a senior public servant.
In your heart of hearts, which way do you think it's best if Toronto goes right now?
In terms of
that whether or not they should put all the money into just one line across Eglinton, or whether they should save a little extra over for Finch, Shepherd, whatever else.
Well, I want to give, first of all, council the space to make their choice. I think that's really important for them to do. And when I receive their position, we're going to be taking it through the board in terms of those 5 criteria I mentioned earlier on. There are benefits for different approaches on
I get all that,
There's
but
no
in your heart of hearts, do you have a preference?
The great thing about a surface LRT is you can reach out and touch more people over a longer distance. But it's also, at the same time, recognize that people love subways. There's no question about that. We are building subways right now. The Spadina subway extension is being built. Our plan talks about subway in the future for a downtown relief line. It talks about a potential subway to the north. But we do need to be thinking about matching the investment with the ridership in a corridor.
I get that as a former Deputy Minister of Transportation, you don't want to get too far out there ahead of politicians. I understand that. But my hunch is that the public, who have been watching this drama unfold for a couple of years now, if not, I mean, depending on when you want to start the clock, it's either a couple of years or it's 20 years, would really like to see the show get on the road. And they want, I suspect, again, they want you to get out there and start knocking some heads together to get this thing going. And you're trying very carefully, it seems to me, not to do that. Do you think you need to do that?
Well, we want, I think what the public is expecting to see is outcomes and construction start to happen, and that's really where we want to get to. But to get to that point, we do need council to come to a position, and we will be very, again, we've tried to be very frank and honest with the municipality, with the TTC about what our advice is. And we'll be giving our best possible advice to our board when it comes forward. But again, I think I should be leaving some space for the expert panel to give its advice to council and for council to make a position.
Well, that expert panel we know is kind of pro-surface as opposed to subway, right?
Well, certainly the composition of it would suggest that there's, I think there's, yes, there is a mix of people, but I would expect that they're going to be pro-surface in the end.
Your agency, if I understand its mission properly, was in part created to take all of these very complicated decisions out of politics and put them into the hands of people who are actually experts. So the decisions weren't made for political reasons, but actually for reasons on the merits. Is it doing that?
We are trying very, very hard to make sure that our decision making is based upon what's the best transportation outcome. Keeping in mind the land use implications, keeping in mind the support for economic growth and development. That's our objective as an organization. We've developed, as an organization, processes to do business case analysis, prioritization frameworks, so that we can give the board and ultimately our shareholder, the province, the best advice as to which projects to move ahead and fund.
Okay, Bruce, we'll keep watching with interest. Thanks so
Thank
much
you
for
very
coming
much.
into TVO tonight.
Thank you.
Bruce McCuaig, President and CEO of Metrolinx.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.